Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining another episode of the Immergence Show. I'm Nico Farah, your host. We took about 3 weeks of a break. We were on a break for the New Year, Christmas, and then unfortunately, there was wildfire in LA, where me and our guests today are from. And, we are still back strong now that we kind of slightly navigated the situation. And we have an amazing episode for you. Today, we're diving into one of the most transformative shifts in the digital landscape, the evolution of the creator economy. Our guest is someone who's been at the forefront of innovation in this space. And he has been creating several companies. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and now CEO of Monad Social, a platform that's redefining how creators and fans connect. With groundbreaking ideas like dance to earn gamification and virtual venues, Brett is pioneering tools that empower creators to build thriving, monetized communities. From his experience in live streaming and eSports to leveraging emerging technologies, Brett's insights are sure to inspire and challenge the way we think about the future of creativity and technology. Let's dive in. Hi, Brett. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Nico. Pleasure to be with you.
Amazing. We can't wait to hear your story, how you got started, in your professional life and what brought you into this space.
Okay, so dial the clock back a little bit. So I had actually studied computer science in undergrad at the University of Wisconsin and was really good at it and enjoyed it. And I remember asking my professor what kind of job one would get if that was a chosen career. And he basically said, you'd sit behind a computer in a cubicle and write code. And that wasn't really where my head was at. So I ended up getting my MBA and going to New York City and London and working on Wall Street and in finance for about a decade and a half as a mortgage and securitization guy. So it was also a lot of new business. We were going into new markets and using macroeconomics to kind of study opportunities, which was great. So I spent about 7 years in New York and about 6 in London with Lehman Brothers and BlackRock and UBS. And then in the late 90s, I was probably even in like 99 or early 99, I'm like listening to my college football games via dial-up modem. And if people remember, the DVDs back in those days had regional coding. So I was literally buying DVDs from the US in order to play in Europe because they didn't have very many. And I just kind of thought to myself, I think this internet thing is here to stay, and wanted to shift gears. I was sort of done with finance for a whole bunch of reasons as well. And through an old colleague, ended up getting my first gig in tech with a company that sold movies, music, and video games called DVD Express. And we did about 120 million in revenues in the early 2000s. So that was quite a good sized business. And I learned a lot about the entertainment industries and intellectual property law. And that was sort of my first dive into it. And then after that, through kind of the same network, met an old business partner, and we started an early eSports live streaming business called Global Gaming League. We had gone to, I think it was the second World Cyber Games in Seoul, South Korea, and all the stuff that we know now about kids being on Wheaties boxes and getting pro contracts and the military recruiting them, and we thought that there was an opportunity to bring a version of that to the West, and that's what we did. So we had at its peak about 10 million monthly average users. We created something called the Hip Hop Gaming League with Snoop Dogg, where he played American sports games and smoked weed with his buddies, and we licensed it to MTV, and it was actually quite a little bit of a cultural phenomenon there for a while. We had a subsidiary in China, and we're a welcome event for the '08 Olympics, and we did events in the Louvre and literally on an airplane on Boeing over the ocean, and testing early Wi-Fi. And so it was super cool technological experience, but I've been kind of a music fanatic my entire life. So we kind of went through those couple of cycles. And when COVID came around, I decided we wanted to reevaluate the space, and kind of having learned from some of the lessons of the past around, maybe being too early and technological challenges and incremental cost, marginal cost analysis because in those days, lots of places didn't have internet connections. So we have to get satellite uploads. There are all kinds of challenges that made it cost ineffective in those days. And a lot of that stuff has changed. So that brings us more or less to today.
Amazing. Wow. Such a diverse and amazing background. I actually started in engineering and then got into business too. So I resonate a lot with what you shared. But it's interesting that you went to finance first and then tech, which really helps with entrepreneurship, I'm sure. So really diverse, really amazing. Before we dive deeper into everything you shared, I want to thank our amazing community and audience in the chat, engaging. Happy New Year to everyone. Chris, Gabriel, Ritika, Jean, and Ian, of course, and everyone else who's tuning in. Live or recording, we're so grateful for you to be here. And today we're talking about community and creators. So I hope that would be helpful. And we already have several questions, which we will get to. Thank you. So based on all these experiences that you had, and especially with the gaming eSports company, what were some of the observations that you had? What were some of these little insights that kind of, gave you that aha moment to want to start something like this?
The entire kind of universe of the online gaming world was just so cool to sort of see in real time. I think in particular for me, coming from a different space. So I was thinking about the other day, we were using Skype in, the mid 2000s, and gamers all over the world were using IRC, and we bought a community platform in Europe that was based out of Amsterdam called Clanbase. And they had effectively self-organized a couple million people in these, I guess what people kind of call micro communities now, but I just sort of think of them as these macro niches, right? And
yeah.
So to see people self-organize around their different game communities and then overlap between game communities, how they communicated with one another, and all virtually. Obviously people would get together for LAN tournaments, and that was kind of a cornerstone to what we were doing, but it was around this global participation. And so to see how people were able to leverage those community tools, and people didn't know anything about this. In my world in New York and London and LA, we were explaining, what was going on to, all the suits and all the brands and all the advertisers, and everyone was super interested, but it was just this nascent understanding. And of course, a lot of that has changed. So it was a real amazing kind of firsthand look at how communities could organize and kind of create this amazing culture effectively, entirely virtually. And we certainly think that applies to almost any kind of cultural phenomenon. And I would say the only thing that really surprised me is kind of how long it's taken to migrate through to the West and into different versions, but they've all had kind of their own little roadmaps. But yeah, that was really a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point, because we have been in communities for maybe thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
But now we are actually realizing how important that is for the survival or success of brands. And now they're tapping into that even more. So what is your definition for community or community building? What do you call a community?
So, I think, community kind of means whatever, you think it means to me. And what we want to facilitate are, smaller communities, right? Micro communities around topics, around creators. All of the major kind of Western and certainly US, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok, they were all about getting as much reach and as many eyeballs so they could go sell as much advertising as they wanted. And, I think we've seen sort of the bastardization of the results of what that happens. And, amazingly powerful. And, I literally stopped using Facebook a long time ago, but, for things like the fires and tragedies, it's very useful for what it does, but it's never been overly interesting to me. I've always been interested in whether it's art or entertainment or, my physics and math and kind of my communities. And I always got a lot more out of being able to have sort of smaller conversations around those topics. And I think, when it comes to super fans, which is what we're really focused on, so sort of say somewhere between 0.5% and 5% of a creator's fan base, that's what we're trying to create, is communities that cater to slightly smaller organizational groups with more freedom of expression, and to be able to share their thoughts within that construct. And people have many of those, like, at least I think most people do. So, whether I like, R&B or hip hop or jazz or video podcasts or whatever that is, there's a range of things that people associate with on a daily basis. So that's what we're trying to cater to.
So having that common interest and brings people together, and then maybe they will have a common purpose to go to concert or do something, like we talked about, support wildfire charities and so on. So that's great. I would love to also hear from our audience, our community in the chat, if you guys have a different perspective about what community and community building means to you. And I want to talk about the challenges that you noticed. So we talked about some of it, but what were some of those gaps that you noticed, from other platforms, and still you see missing in like YouTube, for example, that is so popular, Twitch, and so on?
So I was checking, and I kind of knew this the other day, but it's the 20-year anniversary of YouTube this year in 2025. And, obviously they've made a few changes over the years, but it's largely the same. But at its core, you get a very different experience from these open advertising-based streamers and user experiences. And to see the way people actually communicate within these micro communities that we're creating, these, fan clubs around artists, and what you see on Discord and Reddit, the natures of the conversations can be quite different. I think one of the key, one of the really interesting things around content, that because our content's behind a paywall, we're subscription based, tipping, gamification, free to play gaming types of opportunities. But every artist that I've come across has had a bad experience with social media and this kind of open web, right? I mean, you get haters and people that are disrupting the conversation. And when you've got people that really want to be in this group, you kind of take everyone's blood pressure down a level. And so that allows the artist and the creator to express themselves more freely. The community is allowed to express themselves more freely. And it's really kind of an interesting, amazing benefit to what we did. I didn't think about this in advance, because in the gaming world, I think, to be blunt, we just saw bullying all the time, and people either had a thick skin or they melted down, and there was nothing really to do about it. And there is really nothing to do about it on platforms like X and Facebook and YouTube and these others. So, we think that that kind of mental health component is important, and a kind of really wonderful benefit about actually creating a real community as opposed to, whatever you want to call it. It's not exactly a fake community, but when you open it up to everyone that can come in with their 2 cents, it's not a very healthy relationship.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Ian is adding, community at the basal level drives cohesion. If this is occurring, community is occurring.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, caring's a good word. I mean, when you care about things, you can be, angry and passionate, but there's a difference between that and just being an asshole at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good point. So, in terms of the technology side, what do you think has changed? What was about this Web3 emerging tech that kind of gave you this, again, another aha moment that this is the right time to do this idea?
Well, I think there's two questions in there for me. I mean, one is kind of the broader technological landscape, and then two is the Web3 component of it.
Mhm.
I started mining crypto with an engineering buddy of mine. I don't know, a long time ago, 7 years ago. But just to show how smart I am, I sold my Bitcoin to $800. But I got a good technical understanding of what was going on in the underlying technology. But it's still really problematic. I think it maybe to cut to the chase a little bit for us or for our customers at the end of the day. The whole wallet thing is still, kind of a mess if you ask me. I mean, we partnered with the Near Foundation to use their technology. So when you create a profile on Monad, we're creating a sub wallet account for people, so they don't have to go through that process. So sort of, long story short, I don't think that, given the current dynamics of it, for our customer base, the vast majority of them aren't really interested in kind of the hoops that you have to go through. People can use their crypto to tip with PayPal, and there'll be other kind of solutions along the lines though that way. Having said that, I think from a tokenization and gamification ramification, it's coming. It's going to take some time, and we try to do everything kind of from a mobile first perspective here. So to try and make it usable for anyone in that space. So really, usability is a super key focus on us, and on picking those tools and feature sets that anyone can use without difficulty. In the broader sense, there've been so many technological changes. I mean, we were spending $25,000 a month to host our live streams back in the day, and now that's less. Our annual costs are less than that. So there's just dozens and dozens of technical changes. Having said that, it is a little bit funny to me that, that Zoom took off. I mean, none of these video calls are anything new to me. I mean, I've literally been doing it for got to be 15 years. And while maybe a little bit of a better experience now. So you had this, eye-opening experience through COVID that opened the door for a lot of this other stuff. And you've seen kind of changes in behaviors around that. It's, my grandmother or my mother knows how to use Zoom now.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And Ian is mentioning under the hood Web3 integration, frictionless, seamless onboarding mechanics. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now we would love to know more about your platform. So why don't you tell us kind of what it is, why it came to life, and who is this for?
So let's see here. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious to me and to us that the economics around streaming, and be that, Spotify or YouTube or Wondery or TikTok or Instagram and all these other platforms, had its limits. I mean, the math around it is the math. So maybe I'll just see if I can show this one little clip here. Actually, I don't think the audio is not coming up on this either, right?
No, I mean, I think it's off on the
So
screen too.
So this happened, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. Snoop Dogg came out and was doing an interview and said he got 1 billion streams on Spotify and made 45 grand. And the only thing that surprised me was that people were surprised to hear this fact. I mean, this has been the underlying economics almost forever, and at some point it was worse and then got a little bit better and is now stabilized. So if some of the largest creators on the planet can't make a living doing this, who can? I mean, the answer is it's the largest copyright holders on the planet. It's Universal, it's Sony, it's Amazon and folks like that. But for anybody else wanting to make a living, it's really challenging and problematic. Mm-hmm. So really, in a number of discussions, and one of my good friends ended up working for one of the largest adult payment processors on the planet. And so I had, kind of an eye to what the economics were in that industry for quite a while. And she said, oh, you should talk to this friend of ours who does the marketing for the adult models, as they call it, the term. And she walked me through, their process to leverage social media and X and Instagram and those others, leveraging the reach and the fan bases and, your follower bases there with short form content. And then to take that short form content, so 30, 60-second clips, and migrate them, to OnlyFans and there's a plethora of other platforms like that out there. And using, UTM tracking, for those of you familiar, I mean, more or less old school e-commerce technology in order to identify that, again, sort of 1 to 5% of a creator's fan base that is willing to subscribe and pay and tip them some actual money. Right. So that was, in many regards, super obvious to me, but kind of an epiphany moment. I think one of the challenges you see in the broader entertainment industry is the reality that people have been, in my mind, been, especially in the music space, but also in others, but for over 100 years, they've been told to give away their IP for free so they can get a fan base, so they can get an agent, so they can get a record deal and kind of go on from there. And, that's great. If you really want to be famous and that's all you want to do, that's great. But there's, by our estimation, 300 million creators out there, that are never going to be Snoop. And even Snoop's not making money doing this. So, what are alternative business models and strategies that we can use to help them capture that fan base? So instead of, having somebody doing a show or a video podcast on YouTube and then telling you to go to their Venmo account or their Patreon account and talk to them on Discord, is to try and bring kind of the core elements around that for long format video oriented content in our case. So a lot of what we're doing is performances and shows, and there's archive content around it, but it's not meant to compete with Instagram or TikTok or Reels or any of this other stuff. It's really about creating kind of a larger platform for those people to take advantage of it. So I don't know if you have another question, but I could kind of show you an example of what it looks like. Oh, actually, let's go here.
I would love to also see the competitor sheet or page that you had.
Oh, sure.
Because as you just said, so it's more focused on long forms, or I would say YouTube probably is the main competitor, correct?
Correct. I mean, they're the largest music service on the planet and probably almost the largest anything else on the planet, right?
And what are some of the advantages over?
Well, kind of looking at how we've broken this out between kind of subscriptions, advertising, community, and a transactional nature of it. It's anyone can do it, right? It's it's not free to create the content, but the costs are pretty low, other than your time and the tools that you want to use. And they're these amazing advertising open source models, and I feel like for the last decade or so, everyone picks up and sees a news story about the new Mr. Beast or whatever, the local flavor of the day, where someone's blown up, and everyone thought that could be them, or that they had a shot, and that's what they were going to do. And we went through COVID, and all the stock prices were doing great. So these companies were taking the capital gains or the value that they've created in their stocks and providing minimum guarantees to folks like Joe Rogan and dozens and dozens and dozens of others to help them attract more users. And now we're seeing the unraveling of that. I mean, even Joe Rogan doesn't have a guarantee deal, which is now why he's on YouTube. So you've seen the unraveling of those economics, because the underlying economics are just what they were. So they were never going to support that in the long term. So I don't know how many people are familiar with Webtoon or Crunchyroll, but Crunchyroll got bought by Sony for $1 billion about 7 years ago, I think. Is an anime and manga content platform. Not a lot of community features by our estimation, but an amazing macro niche community Webtoon is similar for web-based cartoons. Went public on the NASDAQ earlier this year with at least an initial $2.5 billion market cap. So, and everyone's heard of OnlyFans. So really amazing examples of these types of communities where when you're really providing the type of exclusive content that customers are willing to pay for, that can be successful.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, let's take a look at the example of the experience.
So I'm gonna, let's see here.
If you want to expand the screen, that would, okay.
So this is, you'll notice hopefully right away that, we allow a much broader type of content for people to be posted. So this is the art that you're seeing here is a combination of stickers and GIFs that this creator has created himself for his circle. We call our channel circles. Maybe just briefly, that little circle dot on the top there, the monad logo is an ancient Greek and Pythagorean symbol for the universe and everything within the universe. I've only met one person that even knew what it meant, who got a master's degree in philosophy. So it's studied in philosophy. It happens to be a single note in music. Many people will have heard of a dyad or a triad, but we like the idea of the artist and creator being at the center of this universe with their fans around them. So this is about kind of creative expression. Let me just go back here for a second. So this is, the app on a phone. That's our wallet in the middle with the tokens that I've earned. The video is on the top. You can tip. And there's a social media feed, top supporters, and then a live chat again with, a combination of people creating their own art. So people hear a song that reminds them of something in particular, they'll go grab a GIF or a sticker and share that, and kind of a lot of humor and, good spirited nature, community aspects of things. And so, just allowing people to express themselves kind of pertinent to their own culture. So let's see here.
Beautiful.
Let's skip ahead here.
So the top part is kind of the virtual experience, right?
Say that again.
The top of the screen is the virtual experience that the.
So that's the stream. So that's the live stream of the archived video content on the top.
And is that like a physical or virtual experience generally?
So both. So I think. That's
depends
really
on the creator.
Yeah, I mean, so what's accelerating, and where I came from in the eSports world, right? We were live streaming live events virtually to people, and that is increasingly happening in kind of the broader entertainment space. So you obviously have your studio creators and DJs and musicians, but increasingly venues, festivals, beach parties are being streamed, again, because the technological hurdles to do that are just kind of falling off a cliff. And, I'm sure much of the audience will probably be familiar with, kind of the challenges in particular in the music industry around live events. A week doesn't go by where there aren't venues closing in the UK and Europe and festivals canceling. And, I think, we've gone through what I kind of think of this irrational exuberance during COVID, where people kind of lost their minds about all of the kind of technology and live streaming and getting out there. And then when that ended, everyone wanted to go out to, go out again, right? They wanted to go to dinner. They wanted to go to entertainment. And now we're seeing that correcting. So a lot of, macroeconomic issues around the world and inflation. At the end of the day, people are spending less money. So every major agency that I'm aware of, people that are involved in the live event business, all their revenues are now trending down. Live Nation's revenues were down last quarter. And so people are looking for other ways to supplant that income. And one of the things we also do is that we share our user data back with our creators and our partners in the space. So when people want to, retarget and market back to their customer base, they can collect an email with us that we co-own in that process. So I'd say, maybe 50% of the content is coming from, home studio type experiences, and half of it from actual fairs, festivals, parties, wherever it may be.
Amazing.
So this little virtual dance floor here. So this is kind of the first foray into kind of the gamification component of it. So we take the accelerometer and mobile phone from the accelerometer from your mobile phone, and we translate that into little pulsating avatars. And this really came about by the artist saying, live chat is great, but I don't really get a sense of, are my fans dancing? Are they sitting there, in the kitchen, wherever they are? So this is, our first example of kind of what that user experience looks like. So you log in, you tap, and then everyone's got their own little avatar. Depending on how much they're moving, you can see some activity around what they're doing, and that activity earns fungible tokens, and those fungible tokens can be used to exchange for other goods and services. And we want to continue what I think of as not only kind of that gamification process, but creating loyalty programs for us. NFTs, digital collectibles. We are, I'm not a fan of creating speculative assets in that nature. And I especially think it's poor for brands and artists. And, many, many examples of brands getting burned by that. But maybe somebody would tip $10 in cash, but they will tip you $20 because they get a nice little digital collectible that's for their wallet, goes the supportive of the artist. And, they've got a little memento for it. And we want to work with brands over time to do, broader integrations, to be able to take those fungible tokens and use them to buy a cup of coffee, or hopefully to create intrinsic value down the road.
So right now there's no e-commerce feature. It's more just the NFT purchase.
I'm not sure what you mean by e-commerce.
Like physical.
Correct. Yeah. We're not doing any physical fulfillment. Some people, people can do that and win links and sell stuff, which is obviously why the email addresses, make sense for people. For the most part, if they've got a physical, delivery solution, they've got one. You've got to be a pretty big artist in order to do that. And if people are selling kind of T-shirts on an ad hoc basis, they can of course do that. But yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And in the chat, Ian is our amazing musician, super fan. And he has talked about these challenges on our show before. And Stilo was another one who talked about his challenges. So yeah, definitely our community understands a lot of those points that you mentioned. So it would be great if we can walk them through, the experience for the creator, and then we can talk about the user as well. Kind of like, what do they need to do to set things up, and how everything looks like for them.
So let's see here.
Is it paid to start or free?
Yeah, so it's free for creators to use. We share 80% of the revenues back with the creators in the process, kind of just net of our merchant services fees. The experience is very much like YouTube or Facebook. So you sign up, you create a profile. That profile manages your channels, which we call circles. All that stuff is auto-generated in the back end process. You set up your profile like you would anywhere else. Add your art associated with it. We generate a unique stream code for you, which is yours forever, which is immutable. You can stream whenever you want. So once it's set up, it's easy to use again. Unlike at least the last time I tried LinkedIn, that you have to generate a code every time, and same thing with Instagram. So we're just trying to kind of simplify that process. You decide the tiers of subscriptions that you want to charge. Typically, it's $5 for basic tier, $10 for a grateful, and $20 for an angel tier. You can do 2 weeks free. You could do a month, and some people have toyed in different jurisdictions with like $2 on the low end. If you want to upload art for your NFT tipping, you upload your art in the dashboard. Of course, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. And similarly, for any of your own custom gifts and stickers, as this artist has done here, and really you're off to the races. There's nothing else to do other than marketing, right? So again, this comes back to, and I'll tell you that the folks that have had the most success, the first thing they did was text all their friends, right? Hey, remember when I got you into that club, or I got you tickets to see such and such? I'd really appreciate it if you'd come back and help support me. And I think, especially in the entertainment space and the artist space, that can be challenging. A lot of artists aren't used to doing that. That's why they have agents and managers. But, you got to be willing to kind of get over that hump and ask for the order, so to speak, and go back to your email addresses and then start marketing on social media again with this concept around, using teaser content. The lifetime value for a fan for us today is about $100. So that means that you could spend $50 in advertising to go acquire those customers on social media channels, and you can generate a positive ROI in order to do that. We don't see a tremendous amount of artists that are familiar with that, but certainly in the video game space, the adult space, and it feels like that methodology is catching on more broadly. We like to say, you can't eat alike. So this is about identifying that subset of your fan base that really cares about what you're willing to do and it's going to part with some money, and to ask them and keep iterating on that process. And then once you collect them, once you've marketed to them with us, you've got them forever. So if you want to go somewhere else or whatever happens, but that's different than going back to Instagram or TikTok and having to market for every event you're doing, every new track release, every new video release. So we think that's very key. At least it's one and done.
So you basically have this home base that you can bring people to, and then from there on you can manage and control everything, which is great. And we have several questions that I want to get into, lots of excitement. But can we talk about the user, like end user experience as well before we get into the questions? So they get a link from their, favorite artist, and then what do they do? Do they need to create an account to access this? Is it just immediate access by clicking?
So basically the same exact experience for them. So each artist has got this their home circle page. So they would take the link from this URL and post that on whatever social media marketing channel they come to. Fan decides that they want to sign up. They create a profile themselves. Creating a profile in and of itself is free. In order to access the content behind the paywall, you have to subscribe at whatever level that is. So they would go to their channel, click on join, decide which tier that they want to subscribe to, and then that's it.
Amazing. And are brands in this platform too? Do they have a different kind of user journey or not yet?
I mean, we're not an advertising-based, platform in the impression-based world, right? So, we're interested in product integrations. We're interested in, co-branded opportunities for brands to expose digital collectibles. And so, it's really up to the creator at the end of the day. But I would say this, because I spent a lot of time in the advertising space. If you're creating if you've done a show and you partner with a brand, and now you've got this content, and I can download a 60-second clip, and I've got my brand logo on it, and now I'm using that to promote on my social media channels, they will get the exposure that they need. I mean, very rarely in my life have you had brands that were particularly interested in, being exposed over hours. Now, I get that can result in more impressions, but at the end of the day, you're able to get a lot of the reach based on your own social media channels by taking the short form content and including the brands therein. And that should suffice for a lot of people's needs in order to be able to generate additional revenues. And now they've got a much more integrated fan experience, a higher quality customer at the end of the day, because we know these people are attached to this artist, this music, this type of content, and are willing to pay for it. So a much more high value customer.
Amazing. And Ian is asking, are you working with NIL entity?
Well, so the short answer is no, love to. I mean, obviously that's a very hot topic these days. And I would say this, we've got an artist that has 35 million fans on our social media account, spent about $1 million to create a YouTube channel, has 1 million subscribers on our YouTube channel. It's made like 50 grand. So, we know that the math and the economics don't work for the vast majority of those artists. And so, working on NIL type deals and to help give them some funding for their production expenses. And we're increasingly seeing retired or younger athletes that are also looking to monetize their content and have a direct relationship with their customers that they can take throughout their career and into retirement. So this is a lot about being able to have that direct relationship and being able to have the information to connect and contact them directly, so that they can have that fan base throughout their career.
Very good point. Harold is asking to clarify, is merely signing up to create a Monad profile as a fan free of charge, or does a fan sign up directly into a specific circle-oriented subscription choice?
First step is just to sign up, which gets you access to some limited content on the platform. So you've got your own profile. You could RSVP to a show. So there's some kind of limited interactions. But if you want to participate in the content, then you would have to subscribe to a given circle subsequently. So
kind of freemium model.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's really up to the artist at the end of the day, So as I said, in this case, this guy offers 2 weeks. This artist offers 2 weeks free. So, that's a chance to experience what it is, and then they'll get charged therein. We're interested in additional kind of freemium type features, but I'm cognizant of kind of the mental health discussion that we had before. I mean, I don't want it to be completely open. We want people that are really fans and really interested in it. And if they don't like the content, no problem. But we're being, thoughtful, if you will, about not having it too open.
Understood. And Joe is saying, thanks for this. I'm interested in the application of microeconomy and superfan concepts in some areas outside of traditional entertainment. Example, healthcare, education, etc. Definitely want to hear more. What are your thoughts about outside of entertainment? Do you think this model can apply?
Absolutely. I mean, most people need to make a living at the end of the day, right? So I don't, and you see master classes and all kinds of stuff in the health and wellness space. Again, as far as I'm aware, for most of those other platforms, you're not building a direct relationship with your customer base because the platform is still disintermediating that relationship. So the way I think about it is, we're not video games, we're not adult.
Yeah.
We're trying to cater to long format video content and communities. So whatever fits that model, then that's fine. If you want to go in and talk about, whatever it is that you actually might see on YouTube, but actually want to make some money doing it, we hope that people will think about us. I mean, that's the gist of it at the end of the day, is identifying your community, identifying your actual, true fans, having a relationship with them, and then being able to generate some actual, economic, cash and support from that subset of your fan base.
And the overall society is moving towards more independent creators, people, taking ownership of their talents. So regardless, this is going to be the future. And we will get to the future predictions soon. But before that, let's ask another question about the gamification. If you can expand a little bit more, how you're using the gamification mechanics. Was that shaking the phone the only way, or what other kind of areas are you tackling for gamification?
Yeah, so that's sort of like the primary fun, performance, interaction component. But that, we are expanding the ways that you can collect fungible tokens by commenting and tipping and, relatively straightforward kind of gamification behavior. But it's all about rewarding the fan and the customer for engaging with the artist and the platform. So we've got all the infrastructure around how one can collect those points, how they can spend them. And, Yeah, I mean, we do have a prototype for an AR portal, which I could show people.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's take a look.
Let's
We
see.
actually have another question about AR VR, so I would love to get into that.
Okay, so let's see if we can do this. Do this. Where is this? So, again, from my gaming background, so this is a kind of a combination of Web3 and gaming mechanics. So, we've got this little virtual dance floor, not a lot to look at, but, a great kind of basic, oops, what happened there?
Maybe refresh the screen.
Yeah.
Challenges of live.
Try again here. All right. So, a lot of people will cast the show that they're watching to their big screen TV. You're going to hold up your phone to the QR code and take you into, an alternate reality. Now, mobile first, headset compatible. One of the guys on my board of directors is at MetaQuest, and so we've got strong opinions about kind of where AR goggles are and where they are not. But that's an example of being able to create digital twins. So maybe that's iconic venues, maybe that's the Hollywood Bowl, maybe that's Studio 54. So the cost to do all this stuff is vastly less expensive than it was, of course, 5 years ago. So we want to take that gamification and tokenization process into these kind of alternate reality experiences, but have to be very mindful of the costs associated with it. I mean, we've got lots of examples of our friends at Warner Music and other places using Roblox, and not that they haven't had some success, but I've been told by them that they were spending about $500,000 to create those worlds, and there was no positive ROI on those experiences. So, but as it relates to digital twins, tokenization, and gamification, again in a mobile first manner, there's a number of different opportunities to carry on and kind of extend those experiences.
Amazing. And so how much of these are you guys doing for the creators, and how much of it is on their own to create these immersive experiences or to create the NFTs?
I mean, for the most part, we certainly provide advice and direction and strategic planning, if you will, and we can help folks when they want. But for the most part, people have been, creating the art on their own. Either they're artistic or have somebody in their universe in order to do it, or they don't. I'd say it's a coin toss. Maybe half of them are really interested in that, and half of them, just don't care, don't have the bandwidth to do it. The one thing that, again, and we kind of alluded to, that is catching on is, people are just increasingly taking a couple of cameras to their live events and recording them or streaming them wherever they are. And so we're trying to, evangelize that aspect of it, because it really doesn't cost a lot of money, and it's, very much encouraged. And that's a way to work your own creative process, right? I mean, however you're creating, wherever you're creating, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to just do what you want to do and not think about the other aspects of it. So, that is definitely catching on.
Yeah, definitely. Making it more seamless and accessible is the goal. So Ian has another question. How do you collab with strategic partners with tangible offerings to extend the superfan experience?
Say the last part of that.
So how do you collab with strategic partners with tangible offerings to extend the superfan experience, like XR fashion?
I mean, we have a call with anybody around kind of what their content creation process is, and, help them think about, how they should go about marketing and scheduling their content and programming on a fairly relative cadence, and answering whatever questions they might have around it. But
I think more he's asking about, like, if you have or like, are you open to partner with folks that can offer other
Oh yeah,
solutions
of
to
course.
the creators. Like, we talked about like the tangible physical goods may not be necessarily sold on your platform, but I think Ian is working on this great sneaker company that has the AR components and the Web3 part. So maybe you guys can find synergies that way.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we talk to people, all the time about that. I mean, there's, this whole, large world and universe of feature sets and tools and creators. Yeah, I mean, I know that's yes is the answer. That's part of our daily conversations.
Amazing.
Yeah, please reach out
And
on LinkedIn or the website.
that would be awesome to see these collaborations come to life. And I would love to get into some of like what's next. So before what's next for your platform, can we talk about like what do you think is the future of this industry? The music industry and the creator economy as a whole.
Um, well, so we started to touch on this, but I mean, you're certainly seeing, again, what I call the unraveling of the irrational exuberance around everyone, kind of discovering through COVID that these tools and feature sets exist, even though they've been in existence for a long time.
Right.
They now, at least the vast majority of people, are understanding that the economics of making money on YouTube or Spotify or Wondery or these other platforms is really challenging and highly unlikely that they will ever make any substantial amounts of money. I mean, I don't know about others' experience, but in the last year, it's just been striking to me to see what percentage of the YouTube videos that I watch, that between the beginning and the end of the YouTube video, they say, go to my Patreon account, go to my website, please give me some money. Because they're all running into this. They were like so excited to kind of have this new toy, which isn't a particularly new toy, but was to millions and tens of millions of people during COVID. And now they're kind of coming back to, am I going to make a career out of this? How much money do I, need to make in order to fund my production expenses and my time and do whatever I'm doing? So I think that you'll continue to see the emergence of these, large verticals, or macro niches across, lots of forms of content. And this isn't meaning that people are going to get, rich doing it, but if people can make, $50,000 to $500,000 a year in order to support their art and their passions, then I think it's just going to continue to see, people going in that direction. Yeah.
Very cool. And in terms of the technologies, do you think the technologies like AI will support this path, or what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, it's already right. It's already happening, right? I mean, I'm not, personally a huge fan of the thought of people using AI to create content that people are going to pay for, in that sense. But everyone we know is already using it in their workflow, right? Whether that's creation of music or creation of videos or editing them, getting more done in their day-to-day business. We could have a great philosophical discussion around, AI generated music and kind of the challenges around copyrights there. There's all kinds of stuff that impact that. But it makes everyone's workflow life easier. I saw yesterday the fearless leader of Meta said that they're intending to fire all their mid-level engineers this year, which is a bit sad, but it's coming. The ability to use AI to write code for relatively low lift things is pretty wild.
Yeah, you and I met at LA Tech Week. I don't know if you attended that Google event. I think it was like the first day of LA Tech Week where it was about music and AI. Did you attend that one?
I think so.
Yeah, it
I
was
went to
pretty.
Google the first day.
Yeah, it was quite interesting how some musicians talked about, this just opens up a lot of opportunities for their ideas to flow, and sometimes you get that creative block. So there's so many use cases that AI can be used for good, and hopefully we'll see more of that. So
We went
yeah,
to Midem at the beginning of last year, and there's a well-known French music producer who, at the end of his talk, went through and created a track in 12 minutes. And, I think it's nothing that kind of intellectually we don't know, but, he created some prose around an idea that he turned into a poem. Then he went through a number of different voices, male and female, in order to choose, the voice that was going to be sung there. And then he created a beat. And in like 12 minutes, he created this listenable track. And he said, that's maybe not going to win a Grammy, but imagine what I could do in 12 days. So, look, even guys like me, like I don't know how to play an instrument, but I can now make music. So, one of the, I like the analogy I like is AI is like the world's largest paintbrush. It can do some bad stuff. And it will, but it's an amazing tool for so many people, and people are using it.
And it's very powerful if you are an expert in an industry. Like we thought Sora is gonna come and then the movie industry is gonna vanish, but we really see that the real creators are making the magic, not just anybody. So it's really interesting time. So what is next for you and your platform? What are some of the exciting stuff that we should look out for? How can our community support you, and where can they find you?
So we are actively involved in Q1 and continuing to onboard creators and to look to partner with other folks in the space that have similar challenges. A lot of that has been around venues that I mentioned that are struggling, and just general awareness for the platform. I mean, kind of this incarnation you're seeing is about 6 months old, so we're really kind of coming out of our shell right now, and trying to spread the gospel. I like to say that really the most fun aspect of our job is being able to pay the artists on a monthly basis and put some money in people's pockets. And I think in particular, the vertical that we went after initially, and which has now become a little bit broader, but actually, let me show one thing here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Just to go through. So that may be a tad small, but so this is a use case for one of our artists, and you can see on the right hand side there that these top 10 tippers, the top guys tip 12 grand down to $1,000. And so, most of the artists that I show this to are just sort of incredulous. And I'm like, I don't know why you're surprised. You can't, no one can go to any kind of, club or major venue, around the world and not see somebody in the VIP spending, maybe $10,000 on a bottle of champagne. So, it's about trying to provide, I think, the support and the explain the reality that the vast majority of artists and creators do have people that are willing to support them economically, and to come up with what I call socially acceptable ways for that to happen, right? I mean, nobody goes up to, somebody at a panel or a concert and gives them $100 bill. That's not socially acceptable, but you can do that by, by funneling your content through our platform. And there are others, and I'm all for it. But so I think the biggest hurdle is for artists to say, my art and my intellectual property has value, and I should recognize that it has value. And that's, challenging, in particular in the music space and some of the others. And I think you have to have an honest conversation with yourself at the end of the day about, how long do I want to try to become famous before I realize that I'm probably not going to become famous, and that I can want to continue to do this, and make a living doing this. This doesn't mean, this isn't, a magic bullet, right? Like one of my favorite things is it's not a magic bullet or silver bullet. It may be silver buckshot. So you got to do a number of different things to market yourself and engage with your community. But at the end of the day, you have to be willing to kind of ask for the order and see if you can make a living doing it.
Diversification, yes. And what should we look out for the platform? What's some exciting things that will be announced?
Well, hopefully we'll have some continue to acquire and support some very, some much larger acts as we go into this year, and just kind of broaden, what we're doing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're doing this for professionals and semi-professionals, not for, really the uber, successful, artists that have, tens of millions of fans out there. But it's important, to get leadership. And, we're looking for people that are, kind of rule breakers and artists and creators that are willing to go and try another path. Though we think this path is, and it has been tried and tested in the video game space, in the adult space, and some of the anime and manga spaces now. So, the first step is to, again, to kind of realize that your art and your intellectual property has value, and that you almost certainly have some subset of your fan base that is going to be willing to pay for that, the super fans, to engage with them, to build a direct relationship with them, and then to carry on with your art.
Beautiful. And as Ian said, without a large brand backing the YouTube creator, there's virtually no way to live off of a YouTube economy. It had to have the brand loyalty of the partner to bolster the content creator. Yep. I mean, even Mr. Beast or others, like, if it wasn't because of the brand partnership, which that adds extra stress and workload on the creator, they probably wouldn't be able to make it. But this is a great opportunity for creators to have a home base and bring everyone together and offer them value. So thank you so much, Brett. This is a beautiful work that you have been doing throughout your career, not just this one. So it's very exciting to hear that this is growing and just 6 months old. And we can't wait to support it. I'm sure Ian and others are going to reach out to you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And
thanks for having me, Nico. Appreciate it. Stay safe. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to our amazing community, Harold, Ian, Gabriel, Chris, Jean, Casey, and everyone else who tuned in or watches us later. We're so grateful for you. Please check out this platform and come back next week on Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We'll be talking about immersive experiences for education, actually. A very different angle we haven't really talked about much on this show. So tune back in next Tuesday. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Take care. Bye.